On this episode of Everyday Grace TV.
Don't talk yourself out of getting involved because there's so much that can happen, and God's the author of all that. God knows where He wants us before we ever go.
When they come by, they get to pick out a bike. There's been times when we've had kids come here with their family and they've never had a bike before.
The little bit of effort that we do here has such a huge impact on their lives.
The very first time when God showed up, it was so exciting because God did speak to me. And not only did He speak to me, He started to encourage me to write.
It is so exciting to see how lives are being changed just by some little round vegetables. If we hear about something cool that's going on in Wilmington or around the world, we have the opportunity to invest in that because we have these pumpkins. So pumpkins power a lot of ministry around here.
Real people sharing real stories, sometimes surprising, always authentic. This is Everyday Grace TV. Welcome to Everyday Grace TV. I'm your host, Jay Locklear. Our tagline is simple: where there's story, there's grace. We're sharing your stories and shining a light on the places where grace is unfolding in the world. In this episode, we'll head to Apex, North Carolina, where one church is making a difference in their community and around the world by restoring and giving away bicycles. Next, we'll meet Pastor Linda Harris, who will share with us the unique way that she draws and sketches her prayers. We'll travel to Wilmington, North Carolina, and visit a pumpkin patch where community is created, but also opportunities for ministry are provided. But first, we'll spend some time looking at disaster recovery efforts just over a year after storms came through and ravaged the state. We'll see how people from all walks of life are coming together, how homes and communities are being rebuilt, and lives are being impacted. We're glad that you're here. Thanks for watching. This is Everyday Grace TV.
Hurricane Matthew came at a time when obviously there was a great interest in the political discourse of the day, and other headlines kind of took over. And in a very short period of time, Matthew kind of got forgotten. But folks here are still out of their homes. The work is incredible in terms of where we are, so volunteers are desperately needed at all levels. Several of the guys who I've known for quite some time asked about the possibility of coming down here to volunteer. And as we talked about it, we contacted a few folks and were given the United Methodist Disaster Response as a point person to kind of get in contact when we came down. So we had kind of this great coming together of the Moravian Church, the Methodist Church, Richard Petty Racing, Motor Racing Outreach. So we see this kind of ecumenical gathering of not only church people, but secular organizations as well, all coming to help folks who are desperately in need.
I had the idea, and I kind of run it by the Richard Petty Motorsport before I even approached the guys to see if they wanted to go. And, the people there, they jumped all over it. They thought it was a great idea. Let's do it. We'll back you. We'll give you what you need. So, sent it in front of the guys, and they just fell in line. They were ready to go. Our goal is to kind of adopt a house, a family, see through rebuilding that house and get them back in their home and help them with the other things they need to get their lives back in order. When you see kids' toys and all their clothing and everything they own, that's pretty heartbreaking. And everything, and there's a lot of treasures, pictures and a lot of treasures in that pile of rubble that is gone forever. That's kind of hard to take.
It's amazing how when you see the size of the destruction and devastation, it almost initially the thought comes through your mind and heart of, gee, well, this is too big. How can I help with this? But what has surprised me the most, especially about this, is just talking about it at a workplace, which is what happened with Richard Petty Racing and this whole thing. We just started talking about it. And the next thing you know, in 3 weeks, we're here. And we got 14 guys working hard and ladies working hard to help some folks. So don't talk yourself out of getting involved, because there's so much that can happen, and God's the author of all that. God knows where He wants us before we ever go.
It brings us together. We don't interact all the time with each other because we're in different groups. But down here, it's one big team. We got guys from all departments. So it's a building deal for us too. Not only are we down here, and that's the goal, to come down here and help, but we're taking something back with us. We're getting our hands dirty, but we're taking it back with us, and that's something that'll be with us for the rest of our lives.
I'm here with Don Evans, who's the site manager for the Fayetteville area disaster recovery effort for the North Carolina Conference of the United Methodist Church. Don, we're sitting in one of the neighborhoods where the storms came through last year. It's been just over a year, about 14 months. Tell us a little bit about how far we've come and maybe even how far we still have left to go.
We've basically just gotten started.
Okay.
It's been, as you just alluded to, it's been 14 months, but things have been slow. And it was mainly because the process of rebuilding, we had to not only start the rebuilding aspect of it, but we had to go and do the tear out part to get the homes to where we could start rebuilding. And most of what we do is done by volunteer labor. And so having the volunteers come in and work, we just have to schedule them and do it pretty much when they can be here to work with us. And so it's been a little bit of a slow process.
Sure. You mentioned that a lot of the work gets done by volunteers. If people are watching this and they say, I want to get involved, or I've been thinking about getting involved, how can they do that? Is there a place where they can come? How can they get in contact with you? Is there a place for them to stay while they're working? How does all of that work?
Absolutely. The beauty of the Methodist organization is that we have a disaster recovery organization in the Methodist Church itself. You can contact the Methodist Conference and just let them know that you're interested in coming to help, and they in turn will get in touch with us and let us know, and you come down and stay with us. Speaking of staying with us, that is a blessing that we have, is that Haymount United Methodist Church has allowed us to use their youth center to house individuals when they come, and we can sleep up to 54 people. Wow. In the youth center. We have a full kitchen, 2 stoves, 2 or 3 refrigerators, all the dishes, pots and pans that they could want, places to eat, bathrooms inside, and showers inside, which for a lot of times for volunteers is really an important factor. And so we have a gracious amount of space and a tremendous amount of work to be done.
Don, you know, people see these stories and they see people going back into their homes. They see where it takes, you know, so many people to make something like this happen. Where are some of the places where you have seen generosity throughout this process?
It's overwhelming. It has been overwhelming. Again, I just alluded to Haymount United Methodist Church. They have been a gracious, gracious host, not only allowing us to use their youth activity center, but also in funding our part of our disaster recovery. The other Methodist churches in town have done likewise and given us funds to use, as well as giving us volunteers to come and work. An organization in Fayetteville is called the Cumberland Community Foundation, and they have just been outstanding working with us, and the funds that they've given us is just immeasurable. We couldn't do what we're doing without UMCOR, which is a part of the Methodist organization, local churches, and Cumberland Community Foundation allowing us to get grants from them to do the work. Individuals have actually given us funds to use, and that's a blessing within itself, because again, it's a lot of people that got harmed, and I should say most of the people that were harmed didn't have insurance. Right. And if they did have insurance, they were underinsured, and that's who we primarily work with, are underinsured or uninsured homeowners. and there's a lot of them left.
When you get somebody back into their home, when you bring them there that day, you give them the keys and you say, this is yours. Once again, it's been put back together and it's ready for you to live in again. What's that feeling like? What is that like for you? What is that like for them?
For us, it is the epitome of why we're here. We work daily to ensure that these homeowners, each and every one of them, if possible, will get back in their home as quickly as possible. And once that happens, that's just why we're here. Just recently, we've had 2 homeowners to go back in their homes. One lady was in a wheelchair, and I think the expression on her face and the words from her mouth were just, to me, I wanted to cry for her, because I know she was overwhelmed and really didn't know exactly what to say, but I think what she said was very gracious, and we appreciate what she said. All the volunteers appreciated what she said, and it's just heartwarming.
Don, thank you for sharing all of that. There's still lots of work to do. If you're interested in helping out, you can visit nccumc.org/disaster. All the information that you need is on that page. We hope that you'll take the time to check that out and find out ways that you can volunteer and you can be involved.
We think church is more than a place to go on Sunday. We think church can happen anywhere. It happens as we respond in eastern North Carolina to Hurricane Matthew's devastation. And when we go beyond helping neighbors rebuild, staying until recovery is complete. The power of love can overcome the forces of nature. If you need recovery assistance, would like to volunteer, or wish to make a financial donation, go to nccumc.org/disaster.
We are here today with our sort of second annual bike collection, working in collaboration with Bikes for the World. Bikes for the World is an amazing nonprofit out of the DC area that, quite literally, as the name suggests, sends bikes all over the world. And this is really, it's a really cool celebratory day for us, because this has really been the culmination of where our bike ministry has been headed for a really long time. Now, our bike ministry started several years ago with just a handful of committed folks, a handful of committed people that said, we see a need in these communities that we are living in, these neighborhoods that we're a part of, for folks who need a reliable means of transportation.
As Mr. Rogers used to say, it's a wonderful day in the neighborhood. And it really has been. I mean, we have had so much neighborhood participation here. We're involved with the Peak Church's bicycle ministry, and we have a number of volunteers who are kind of regulars with that. And then we also have a large participation just from our church members. And a lot of people have come out today to help out. We've also had tons of people from the neighborhood coming, dropping off bicycles. I mean, we expect to get close to 200 bicycles donated today. And the bicycle ministry really started off as kind of a neighborhood thing, just really a neighbors helping neighbors thing. We're mostly focused on the neighborhood. We are collecting bicycles from people in the neighborhood, taking donations from individuals, bike shops, and we fix them up. Some of them are in pretty good shape when they're dropped off, some not so much. But we repair the bikes as needed, and then we have flyers up around town for people who, just can't afford a bike but need one, people who need a bike to get to work, to get to school, or just kids who need a bike to play. So over the past couple of years, we've been able to provide about 150 bikes to people in the neighborhood.
We get donations from all kinds of sources. We do have relationships with local bike shops, and a lot of times they'll give us the bikes that people, they don't think that they can sell, and so we actually get quite a few bikes from bike shops. And so what we do is we take them in, we store them, and usually 2 to 3 times a year we do a work day where the church comes together, and it's pretty nice because adults, kids, Ages from 8 to 80 can come out here and work on the bikes. We want to make these bikes safe for the road, and so brakes, steering, getting the tires working, getting them shifting right, putting reflectors on them, and we have a group that are doing that, and then we'll also have a group that is washing the bikes up, right? So we'll clean them up and so they look good. And so on these work days, we'll actually have people that need bikes come by, and when they come by, they get to pick out a bike. There's been times when we've had kids come here with their family and they've never had a bike before, and so we get them a bike for the first time. And I have walked next to a kid that learned how to ride a bike in this parking lot, right? So it's kind of a neat experience where you get kids that are learning to receiving their first bike and learning to ride for the first time. And then also we've got people that don't have transportation to work, and they'll be coming here and they'll be picking out bikes, and it's something that's going to be supporting their livelihood. That's how they can get to work.
One of the real joys about working with this ministry is that we get to see some of the neighborhood people like on maybe a yearly or every other yearly basis, because especially the people, the men and women who need bicycles to ride to work, they use their bicycles a lot. And sometimes, unfortunately, the bicycles get stolen. Sometimes they just get broken or wear out. So we've had numerous people come back, year after year to get new transportation. And it's really an enriching experience for the volunteers, because we get to hear their stories and understand that, the little bit of effort that we do here has such a huge impact on their lives. That there's something really rewarding about giving a bicycle to a young kid who's never had a bicycle before, and seeing the joy that they're going to have. But I think even more, there's a reward in helping someone who needs that bicycle to get to work or to school, who for some reason doesn't have other transportation. I think that's what keeps us really going in this. About 3 years ago, our pastor, Kyle Meyer, he had this vision that maybe we should expand our notion of neighborhood to a little bit bigger than just the Apex and Cary area. So he got in touch with an organization called Bicycle Man of Fayetteville, and we had a collection for them in which we collected a bunch of bikes for them, and their ministry is giving bicycles away to kids in the Fayetteville area around Christmas time. And then following on from that, Kyle got in touch with the organization that we're working for today, which is Bikes for the World. And that is a national organization with pretty much an international outreach. So what they do is they go around all over the United States, and they work with local partners like us who organize these bicycle collections. And then they arrive with a big truck, and we'll load the bicycles on their truck, and they take it to a container ship, probably out of Wilmington. And these bicycles that we're collecting today and working on are going to go to people in developing countries all around the world. So it's really an international outreach. So our concept of neighborhood has expanded a little bit from Apex, Cary to Fayetteville, and now everywhere, pretty much.
People have asked often, why did this even start? What sort of spawned this or motivated this? And I think first and foremost, we believe in a God who is always taking and making things new, taking things that were once broken, once useless, once collecting dust, and that we have much dust metaphors and imagery in Scripture. Literally, these are collecting dust just a couple of weeks ago, and creating new life out of them. And I think one of the beautiful things about these is that they can serve for folks in our community as a means by which to say, there's not only a group of people in Apex, North Carolina who care about me enough to sort of meet this need, but they obviously believe in a God who cares enough about me to provide this need and sees it and knows that need is there.
Everyday Grace TV. Where there's story, there's grace.
When I come into this room, I pray and I believe that these things will come to pass. So I believe that this is a part of what the scripture speaks of when you write the vision and make it plain. And though it tarry, it will come to pass. So praying in color is actually using crayon, and it's almost like magical. You allow the Spirit to lead you and direct you into sketches or whatever. But I wanted my sketches, as opposed to flowers, I wanted them to be more real. And I thought the more real they were, the more definition it gave. And then when I would look at them, I know what I was asking for, requesting. So I started putting features in mine, like stories or prayers or people. And it didn't have to be real looking, but it did have to give a story. And as I use scripture according to Mark 11 and 23 and 24, it declares that if I ask it and trust God, I can have what I say. If we can see the vision, then we can believe in what we see. So I sketched the picture as I want it, and I'm declaring that this is what I desire of the Lord. And the very first time when God showed up, it was so exciting because God did speak to me. And not only did he speak to me, he started to encourage me to write. And I wrote journals after journals of what God said. And oftentimes I would keep it to myself because I wasn't sure what people would say. But then I would begin to say, you know, it came to me this morning that if you would do so-and-so, God would do so-and-so. And folks started listening. And when it became so real to me that God was really speaking and folk were really believing it, I started really telling people. I said, I'm praying for you. When I pray, I believe God's gonna make things happen. He's a mighty God and he can do anything. When I go before God in prayer, God always answers. You see, we got to trust God. And through my praying and praying in color and sketching, I put it on my wall. And as I do this, I can believe that God will make it happen.
A pumpkin sticker?
Sure. Thank you.
Here you go. Do you want a sticker on your hand or your shirt? There you go. This one's $10 plus 4, so 14.
This is our 27th year of the youth group at Wesley Memorial having a pumpkin patch in the front yard. And it's actually kind of a cool story how the Pumpkin Patch Fundraiser Incorporated came to be. There was a guy and he went to his pastor and he said, hey, I have some pumpkins. Do you want to sell some pumpkins and do a little fundraiser? And now that family, it has expanded and expanded. They have 1,500 different locations across the lower 48 states and help Boy Scouts and churches and all sorts of people raise money. And it's really cool. We get somewhere between 5 to 7 tractor trailers full of pumpkins in our 6-week season. This year we opened on September 30th and we will close sometime Halloween evening depending on how many pumpkins we have left. Some years we have no pumpkins left. There was one year a couple years ago all we had left were some gourds.
They're kind of cool with these. They have like the long stems. These are our other gourds. These are more like, they look kind of like a swan.
We have people that come and take them and we give them to them as a donation for maybe their fall festival. And one year we had a bunch of the pie pumpkins and we gave them to the food bank so they could give them to people to eat.
It's a staple of the community and probably the first bona fide pumpkin patch in the area. And bona fide, I mean, you know, where people can come and bring their family and start a tradition. And it's been a tradition here for quite a long time where people have come here as children and had their pictures made, and then grew up, had families of their own, and brought their own kids back. So it has those deep roots, and that is important to the community to have something to look at and fall back on and think about, growing up in their childhood.
It's not just people from our church that come, it's the whole community that comes in and supports. When they move away, they come back here to buy pumpkins. This is the only place that they'll buy pumpkins. So you get to see what a real impact the pumpkins really make on, not just on our church or on the Navajo reservation where we get them from, but the whole community gets really involved and they support us, which I think is a great blessing for everybody.
One of my favorite things about the pumpkin patch is that it's a way for people that are new to get connected, and you just have these great conversations while you're passing the pumpkins out of the truck. So there are people that, they were strangers at the beginning of the pumpkin season, and by the end, they're your friends.
We have a lot of these little cutout things where you can take pictures with your family and with a friend or something. You can take these carts, these yellow and green and silver carts, to put all your pumpkins in so you don't have to hold them while you're walking around the patch. We have this wall back here where we have a bunch of pictures and little sayings that go with stuff that we've done. And then also some mission opportunities that our church takes part in.
One of the ministries that's been really impactful that the Pumpkin Patch helps support is our ministry in Malawi. We've worked with Zoe Ministries for the past 3 years to help sponsor a working group, Yamakani, which means praise. And this past year, the funds from the Pumpkin Patch helped pay for us youth and other members of our church to go with Zoe Ministries to Malawi on a mission trip where we observed not only our group, but many other groups in Malawi that Zoe's helped become self-sufficient, and it's been a really powerful ministry for us here.
It is so exciting to see how lives are being changed just by some little round vegetables. The power of pumpkins enables our youth group to go on mission trips. We've been to Philadelphia, we've been to West Virginia, we've been to the mountains of North Carolina. The power of pumpkins powers things like bicycles for kids served by the Methodist Home for Children, and we provide bicycles for the kids that are in this area that are as part of the foster care system that Methodist Home supports and takes care of. We also get to do things like make donations to Winter Park Elementary School. We buy snacks for their first graders because they eat really, really early, and then by the afternoon they're hungry, and as we all would be. If we hear about something cool that's going on in Wilmington or around the world, we have the opportunity to invest in that because we have these pumpkins. So pumpkins power a lot of ministry around here.